Hello and welcome to the video lecture series brought to you by St. Andrews Institute of Technology and Management. And we have started discussing the subject called programming for problem solving using C language. And yesterday we have started with the introduction to the C language, and today I will try to uh, conclude the introduction to the C language. So let's head back to the IDE where we have started writing the first C code. Okay, so this is where I have left it out yesterday. So what I forgot yesterday was to insert a comment there about the variable. Okay, so I'll do that first. So I will call this as declaration and initialization of the variable. Okay, that is it. And let's say if we are writing the code to add two numbers, then we need two numbers. Okay, so in that case we have to initialize one more variable here. So that one variable, again, as you know, that only numeric numbers can be added. So I'll also initialize the next variable as integer, and I will name it as number 2, and let's say the value of this is 6. So to remind you again, if you haven't seen the last lecture, it's a long time since you have seen the last lecture. By writing this line, I'm actually saying the compiler to reserve 2 bytes of memory for the variable number 2 bytes only, because this variable is of type integer, which has been specified by this, and the value 6 must be stored in those 2 bytes of memory. And this is your assignment operator. It means anything that is written on the right hand side will be assigned to the variable on the left hand side, and the semicolon in the end will define or will signify the end of the line. Okay, now next I will also initialize one more variable that is of type int also, and I will name it as result, and I will not initialize it, I will only declare it. So as you can see, there is no value assigned to the result variable. Now I have declared this variable because after adding the number 1 and number 2 variables, I need to store that result into some variable. Okay, so that storage of the final result will be done by the variable result. So let's do the final calculation. So result will be equal to number 1 plus number 2, and that is it. Now this is actually called an expression. This is an expression, and to be specific, it is called an arithmetic expression. We'll just call it expression now. So I'll call this as expression, and there it is. And then in the expression, I have actually used the two predefined variables number 1 and number 2. There they are. And I have defined or I have written a new operator, the summation operator. This is actually an arithmetic operator, which you know it by the plus sign in the mathematics, and basically it will fulfill the same purpose as it has been doing in the mathematics. So by writing this operator, it will actually add the two numbers if they are integer or float to its right hand side and to the left hand side, or any expression in there, and if there are written some words to the left and right hand side of it, that is string or characters, then it will add the either concatenate it, that means add two words will make a one single word, or if there are two characters, then it will try to add the ASCII values of them. Okay, what are ASCII values we'll see when we get to the character variables. Okay, so basically the main calculation of, or we can say the main logic of your code is done by now, because we have initialized the two numbers which we want to add, we have passed on the values, and then we have calculated the sum of those two values, and we have stored the result in a new variable called result itself. Now the problem is all this will be done by your system itself, and it will not be visible to you unless and until you make some arrangements to output your result. Okay, now by output I mean, what if after the addition of two numbers that you have mentioned here, you want your result to be displayed somewhere. Okay, for the displaying of the results, we in the IDEs we normally have a small window called console. I will show you in a while. Console, and that console actually tells you about if there are any kind of errors in your code, and if not, then what is the result of your after the running of your code, and what is the total time taken by your application or your code to run, and what is the total memory it has used in your system. So some basic messages will be conveyed to you through the console. So we'll just show you. Not now. Let's first deal with the problem of displaying the result. Now, to display the result, we must have some output kind of let's say command, which outputs something to the console. Okay. Now we have such command, and that is called printf. Printf is the command which outputs some values to the console. So what is its common syntax? Now, first the keyword printf will be typed out, and we'll pass the brackets, the circular brackets or the normal brackets as you know of, and then we'll start with double quotes, and inside those double quotes I will pass a format specifier %t. So I'll start writing the comments here. I think it will not be justified if I didn't write it. So your %d is actually the format specifier, and what it means is it will tell the output function what kind of data will be outputted. Okay. Okay. So your %d is the format specifier. Now this percentage or ampersand sign is constant, and after that d is used for your integers only. Okay, d is used for integers. If you are using a float value, then you are going to use percentage or %f. If you are using some character value, then you are going to use %c, and just like that. Okay, for integers we use %d or the %d as you know of. Okay, so these are format specifier. You have to remember those. every time you want to output some integer value to the console, you have to specify the format specifier inside the codes, and the in the place of format specifier, your value will be printed. Okay, so after that you have to put in a comma, and then the name of the variable whose value you want to output. So I will write result because I want the value of result to be printed, and semicolon after that. So what will be done by this particular value is it will print the value of result in the place of this format specifier. Okay, so anything inside these double quotes will be printed. Only this value will be printed. Okay, but this value actually holds or is the format specifier for anything that is stored in this variable. Okay, so you can say this is actually a kind of placeholder also. This is also a kind of placeholder. Okay, so you can test it now. Let's say I want to see the result of the application, of the addition is. Now you can see that I have passed on a string here, that is the combination of characters, that is the English language vocab that you know. So I've passed on some words here that the result of the addition is percentage or ampersand d, that is the format specifier. So what I'm trying to say in the last few seconds was, in the place of this format specifier, the value inside the result will be printed out. Okay, so this is actually telling me two things, that the value that is going to be printed out here is actually an integer value, and secondly, instead of this particular value or instead of me, you have to the value inside the result variable will be printed out and not this. So this is also a placeholder as well as a format specifier. Okay, and this will be printed as it is until from this is actually string. So as I've told you, what is inside these double quotes will be printed only. And if you have passed any format specifier here, you have to specify after this comma the list of variables. Okay, we'll come to the input output again in detail in the next few lectures, but this is just an early introduction. So just remember. Now we have one problem here, because this printf is not predefined in your C language. That means this is not a keyword. This is actually a function, like this main function. Okay, this is actually a function, which is what it is doing is its work is to print out whatever be passed on to it inside these double quotes. It has to print it out. So these are actually called as arguments. As you can see, after the main function we have also one argument brackets, and that is empty. It means main function do not need any kind of data to do its thing, but printf needs the data to be passed on to it to do its work. Because if you don't told your printf function to print something, so what it is going to print? Okay, so printf is also a function, but the problem is this function is not defined, or it is not a keyword in the C compiler. It means your language C doesn't know it beforehand. So what we are trying to do here is these output and input functions are actually defined in a library called standard input and output library of C. Okay. Now these are the early coders or programmers have spent their time, the enormous amount of time writing these functions, and so that your life could be easy, you don't have to write the whole function to how to interact with the console, or how to output something to the console, or how to read something that is being written to the console. So what they have done is they have written all those functions there, and they have stored it inside a library. So library is just a collection of functions, the commonly used functions. Well, in this case, if we are using the input output library, standard input output library, so these are commonly used input output functions, and they have used it to yes, they have stored it in the free domain. It comes with the compiler, but it is not automatically included in your code. So what you have to do is you have to tell your compiler to include that particular library into your code. Now from that library, all the functions that are defined in that particular library, you can use them at your free will. So how you can do this? So you have to remember this hash include and stdio.h, and that is it. We put out a comment here to tell you what we are actually doing. So okay, hash include is actually a assembler directive or a preprocessor directive, and stdio.h is actually standard input and output library. Okay, so as you can see, hash include is a preprocessor directive. That means it is some keyword, or for now it is something which is used to call an external library. Okay, it is something that is used to call some external library, and name of that external library is actually stdio.h. .h is the extension for the libraries. That is how you know that this file is actually a library file and not some any other file. Okay, so this library called stdio.h is actually the standard input output libraries. The standard functions to do input output functions for you are actually written, compiled and defined in this particular library. All you have to do is, now as you can see, you by the use of preprocessor directive called hash include, you have included this library into your code. Now this library is actually part of your code, and all the functions that are defined inside those library are valid, or to be valid to be used into your main function. As I have told you, all the other functions will be called inside your main function. So this is it. Your main function has called a function called printf, which is actually been defined in the standard input output library. Okay, so this is how it has been done. So I think you have got the point. So this is your inclusion of some external library. This is your main function. These are your variable declarations and initializations. This is your expressions, and this is your standard input output function, or any external call to the function. Okay. Now in the end, all I have to show you is how to run this. So let's go back, and first I have to save this file. I think I have already saved this file. As you can see, every C file will be saved as .c extension. So the name of this particular file is actually 20.c. Now this is not a natural name to a file. You can name it as you want. Then let's say your first code want, or your actual name of the application, and it must be let's say succeeded by .c extension. .c extensions tells the compiler that The file there it is to run is actually a C language file. If you don't include the .c file, your compiler will not be able to look out for the files because it is blind for any other file. It has been only, it can only see the .c files. Okay, so you have to put the extension .c after you save your file. Okay, so let's run it. The running of your code actually depends upon the IDE you are using, or if you are not using any other IDE. So I'm using this particular IDE, that is dev C++. It is quite intuitive and the compiler is the latest one. So all you have to do is this particular colored button, that is compile and run. Compile means you have to look out if there are any problems in it, and then you have to run. That means you have to run the application, let it do what it has been supposed to do. So I'll press this out, and okay, now this black window is actually your console. This is actually your console, and it is saying that process executed after 0.09756 second with return value 28. This is actually the time taken by our application to run, and above that line you have the print output string that you want to print using your printf. That is, result of the addition is 10. That is 4 plus 6 is actually 10, and as you can see here, the result of the addition is, instead of %d, you have the value of result there. So 10 is being printed there. So as I have pointed out earlier, this is actually a format specifier as well as a placeholder. So instead of this format specifier, the value that is inside the result will be printed out. Okay, so this is the string that you want to print out to your console. It has been done with the help of the printf function. Printf function is a standard input output function, or I can say a standard output function, which is actually been defined in the standard input output library, that is stdio.h. And this is how you run your first code. So you now have a feel what your first code will look like, and as you can see in the compilation log, you have few of the let's say details. You have the output file name, that is users, that is the destination of the file, and the name of the file is 20. And as you can see now, the name of the file is actually being changed to 20.exe. So what your compiler has done, it has changed the .c syntax into machine language syntax, machine code. Now this .exe file is actually the executable file. As you know it already, all the softwares that you wish to install on your Windows PC, if you are using a Windows PC, you will see that it has been succeeded by the .exe extension. So .exe means the executable file. So your compiler, what your compiler has done is, it has taken a .c file, okay, it has analyzed it, and it has converted it into an executable file. Now you can run that executable file. When I press this button, that is compile and run, the compiler has converted the file into .exe file, and the run command will actually run this particular exe file. The size of the file is 127 almost KB, and the total time it has taken is 0.83 seconds, so it's less than 1 second. So these are the few details you should look out for. The time and the size are crucial, and not in this case because it's quite a small application, but we are going to write a real world application with a real world in real world scenarios. The total time your application took and the total size does matter a lot. So I'll end this lecture now, and tomorrow we are going to start with the types of variables in C. Thank you.